Network. I am your host, Gabe Cymbalista, and today is our guest, director Darren Lynn Bousman. How are you, Darren?
What's going on, man? How are you?
Good to see you. It's been a long time.
I know. I was just
Yeah.
thinking about it. I think I met you the first time. Well, and I've met you at a convention or two.
hmm
It's great to be talking to you. You're always
Yeah.
you were the most positive, most energetic person at any of those things. So it's
Thanks, man. I appreciate that.
of course.
Yeah, I've that was the first one I met you at. I've been going to these things for God knows how since 2005. But I've Costas, some of our mutual friends I've known for a long time, from the Saw Cruise, Saw Mania to the Saw Cruise to all those
Why
things.
have I
Yeah.
never been invited to the Saw Cruise? I've directed a few of those films, and no one invites me to the Saw
Can I
Cruise.
tell you something? John, I was told Donnie Wahlberg was invited. I don't know why you weren't. I think you should have been, and I hopefully one day they'll do another one because God knows that
I
would
mean,
be.
listen, all due respect to the Saw Cruise, I don't know how I feel being trapped on a boat with a bunch of Saw fanatics. I think that is a Saw trap in of itself.
Well, it's funny. People ask me, "What are you gonna do? Like play a game, and there's gonna be traps and a whole maze?" I'm like, "No." It was more chill. Like the Walking Dead cruise was like that. Like the whole ship. The Saw cruise was just a bunch of fans and these actors. Like part of the cruise was for them. It wasn't like the whole thing. The Walking Dead thing that was like boat wide. That was like ship wide. The Saw cruise is more like chill. It wasn't like, oh, you're playing games or going to haunted houses type of thing like The Walking Dead. But it was very close encounter and it was fun. I One of these days I got to show you the footage from it. I have all these videos of stuff I took with Costas and Mark and all these guys.
Do you know what
Yeah.
scares me about the Saw Cruise and even talking to you is that I forget what I eat for breakfast, let alone details of movies that I made 14, 15 years ago. I have been in numerous situations where people that are very affectionate of the Saw franchise will like try to talk to me, and my face just goes blank because I do not remember. They'll be like, "Hey, remember that trap in Saw 3?" And I'll just kind of tilt my head, and I'll be like, "No, yeah, yeah, I remember that trap," but I have no idea what they're talking about.
The funny part
So
about you mentioning that, I remember you saying that from before, like that I remember you saying that about you forgetting, you know?
Well, I was at it might have been that first convention. I've only done a couple conventions, but I think I was with Tobin, maybe Shawnee was there, and someone asked a question in the audience, and I was a little intoxicated. I mean, I pretty much drink constantly, so I'm never
Was this
not
in
drunk.
Dallas?
I think so.
That
And
was the one.
I answered a question, and then the whole audience had a face on. It was almost like I asked them all to collectively eat a fart at the exact same time. And I realized that I was giving the wrong answer to a question that the fandom knew that I had no idea what I was talking about. So ever since then, I get a little gun shy when I go and talk to people about any of my movies.
If it's any consolation, on the Saw cruise, somebody asked Costas a question, and he answered the question. He gave an answer to a completely different question. So you're not the only one. So yeah.
Yeah. Hold on. My dogs went out of my office. Hold on.
Hold on. Yeah, sure.
Yep. All right, I'm back.
Since you brought up your dog, let's bring up Saw 4 and how you brought in a lot of your own family members and quote
Yeah.
unquote into the cast.
On Saw 4, I had the rape victims first off that were in Ivan's room was my lawyer, my assistant, my fiance at the time, and an office PA in the Saw office. And then I put my dog Chance in. Now this isn't Chance. Come here. This is not Chance, but this looks like Chance. Come here.
Yeah, I realized that.
Come here. Come on. Up. So this is another one that looks like the same dog that was an Ivan's thing, but it's not. I just have those types of dogs. Yeah, by the time we did Saw 4, it was such a I don't know, everyone knew everyone, and it was there was a very much family dynamic. So we were just putting friends, and I think that's what makes Saw cool is the fact that the editor becomes the director, the production designer becomes the director. My fiance is a rape victim, and this is a funny story. My parents came on set that day, and my fiance, they'd met a couple of times before, but Laura was forced to. She was the one on the videotape as well that Lyric had to watch. So she had to basically moan and scream and do all of that as my dad was literally 10 steps from her. I've got a weird family life.
Well, at least he got you and your parents got to hold part of his body afterwards, so it's
Yeah,
fine.
they did. They
Yeah.
did.
Well, it's funny. I saved a screenshot of you when you were directing that scene. Is you when the
Oh,
BTS shot.
uh, yeah. I can't tell if I'm better looking now or then because there's something wrong. There's something up with me back at that time. Yeah, it was fun. I mean, it was also I had done two movies back to back at that point. I had done Saw 2 and 3, and I was prepping Repo at the same time I was doing Saw 4. So it was I was overwhelmed and kind of spiraling out of control. So that photo is me.
Pun
Probably,
intended. Pun
yeah,
intended.
it's spiraling out of control. Yeah, it's crazy. But it was it was fun. It was a fun shoot. Probably the least favorite of all my Saw films, but it was still Do you know what's funny?
The fourth one. The fourth.
Yeah, the fourth one's probably my least favorite. A multitude of reasons, but a funny story about that sequence, the Ivan sequence. I was in the middle of pre-production of Repo, and in that sequence, my phone rings, and I look down, and I was a number I didn't recognize, and I pick up the phone, and it was Kevin Costner calling me, and I geek the fuck out, and I literally left set in the middle of shooting, and my wife Laura finished that scene. I'm not even joking you, because he was calling me about Repo because he's friends with Mark Berg.
Okay.
And we were trying to cast Repo Man at that point. And Kevin Costner has a band, is a singer. And so I get to talk to guys. So I literally left that scene for like 3 hours. It was a long time. Like that phone call lasted a long time.
Wow.
While I talked to Kevin Costner, which is pretty cool.
Wow, that's amazing. It's funny. It's funny because, well, a couple of things. One is, I think also, well, Ivan, what's his name, Marty, was
Yeah.
also in Repo, not just
Yep.
Saw 4.
Marty,
He had
yep.
as well as
He was in the and he was in the Barons. He's in one scene of the Barons. So yeah, Marty was. There's certain people that I mean, specifically with me, I used to very much have a repertoire mentality in the way that I cast people. That if I liked them, if we ended up vibing, I would just put them in things again and again and again. Now I think I have that with writers and creators that I work with in the immersive world, where I just use the same people again and again, because if you like someone and you guys get along, then just keep bringing them back. But I mean, from Jay LaRose, who is in Saw 3 and 4,
and he's a very dear friend of yours. I know you've told stories about
him. He's one of my best friends. I met Jay. For those that don't know, Jay LaRose was in the Chain Trap in Saw 3. So I just shaved today, and I haven't shaved in like months, and I just realized how fat my jowls are, but my beard covered it. So
I did not even realize.
I got to get back to my beard. So yeah, Jay LaRose and I met right after film school. I put a blind ad out, and I was looking for the thing was like a middle class white, middle of the road, normal looking person. Like it was a very nondescript thing. And then here comes Jay, and at the time he had long hair down to his back, completely the opposite of what the ad was. And he was one of the nicest dudes in the entire world, and I ended up casting him. And he was in every project I've done since then, outside of Saw 2, but he's got cameos and things that you wouldn't like, even if he's not featured as a talking, like I'll put his photo on the mantle of something. So Jay is one of these people that's in everything. And I credit him for, I did an Instagram thing, but I credit him for why I'm still in Los Angeles. And I kind of downplayed that Instagram story. So basically I told a story about when I first moved to Los Angeles, I was broke. And, Jay was always supportive of me and always helping me. And there was a time where he couldn't get a hold of me. And that's because my phone was shut off because I couldn't afford the phone bill.
Service.
And about 4 hours later, my phone starts ringing. And I was shocked and surprised because it was off. And it was Jay calling. And I said, how did this happen? And he goes, He goes, I paid your cell phone bill because he goes, but don't think anything about it. This is selfish on my part because I know you're going to make it and you're going to take me with you when you do. And that was one of the smaller things he did. I mean, he paid my rent for numerous months. I'll tell you a funny story that I've never really told publicly, I don't think, about Jay Larez. And he might get upset, but he's probably not watching, so I don't give a fuck.
I meant to tag him, and I'm like, wait a minute, I know I tagged Tony from Saw, and I'm like, who else do I need? And I totally missed out on Jay, so
yeah,
he might be missing it. It will be online, so he might catch it.
Good. Well, so Jay and I became very good friends, and he was in this first short film I did. And I ran out of money when I was making it, as most people do when they're making films. Mm-hmm. And Jay and I had talked about some of my favorite movies, some movies that inspired me. And I always talk about Henry, Portrait of a Serial Killer as a movie that had a big influence on me. And so we finished this film called Butterfly Dreams. And I leave to go to LA, and he goes, hey, I got someone that might be able to help you. Give him a call when you get out there. But he didn't tell me who it was, anything like that. So it ended up when I get to LA and I call, it was Michael Rooker. And Michael Rooker is in the LaRose family, or maybe Jay is in the Rooker family. And Michael Rooker brought me into Sony Pictures and had them finish the sound on this thing. So Michael Rooker literally finished this first short film that I ever did. And I became very good friends with him after that, all thanks to Jay. And it's just like Jay is just one of the most selfless people I've ever met. And so I'll continue to put him in everything I do that he'll star in. But he's a big star now. He's in The Righteous Gemstones, and
really,
yeah, he's one of the like Danny McBride's best friends in The Righteous Gemstones. So he's getting too big for me now, I guess.
Well, he was also every chance I catch him, like those events I missed, but I know he's done events with Shawnee. He's done events years ago in Monster Mania. He did one when Leigh Whannell actually still did events back then. Yeah. But he was also in Insidious,
the long-haired fiend.
Yeah, he was in part 1 and 2.
He pops up quite a bit. I see him a lot in different TV shows. I'll see him just pop up again and again, which is cool to see.
Yeah, I think we all have that one friend, no matter where we live, who like pops up, like who acts, who will be in like random shows, either as an extra, or a small part, or a big part. Yeah. I actually wanted to ask you about, because this is going to be my first question, the late Paul Sorvino, because it's extremely recent. He passed away, and you also did a whole tribute to him on social media. Can you talk a little bit about Paul?
Yeah, do you know what's funny? Let me see if I have something. Hold on.
Yeah, sure. Just a side note while you look, I used to have his suit from Repo.
You used to have the what?
The suit he wore. Roddy Largo's suit. I used to have it. Because I collect all the Screen Use stuff, but I don't have it anymore. And when I met him, I hadn't had it yet, but I had him sign a Goodfellas thing years ago. He was, yeah.
Well, it's funny. Sometimes I get things from fans when I go out, whether I go to conventions or I do screenings, and this is something a fan gave me that I still keep and I love.
Wow.
So Paul Sorvino, again, a story that I've told in parts, never the full thing, but basically, I was a huge Paul Sorvino fan. Who isn't? I loved mob movies growing up. And even when he's not playing the typical mob boss, people know him from Goodfellas or whatever. Oh, here's a question. Can you name a movie in which Tobin Bell and Paul Sorvino were in together?
Goodfellas.
Was Tobin Bell in Goodfellas?
Yeah, he made like a 2-second, like a 5-second cameo where he's like, "Got your papers? Yes, got your," and he just walked out. Like literally, like he's like it was like
in the Firm. Paul Sorvino was in the Firm.
That I forgot Paul was in the Firm, but I knew Tobin was. Yeah.
So okay. So anyway, what was I going to say? Oh, so Paul Sorvino. So I was a huge fan of Paul Sorvino, and so I didn't know him. I had no connections to him. I reached out. I knew that he sang. I didn't understand like the whole opera thing that he had done, but I knew he sang a little bit. So he's cast. And when you meet Paul, he is the biggest person in the room. No one is bigger than Paul Sorvino. So we meet Paul, and he's just this like big teddy bear kind of guy, and he likes to hold court. So he wants to make sure that when he walks in any place, he is there. So it kind of became a joke that he's kind of cocky, kind of arrogant, but it's Paul Sorvino. He's earned that right. So we record the album, everything goes great, and then we fly to Toronto to go make the movie. And I could tell right off the bat there was going to be some issues. He was kind of standoffish to me. I came from the music video world, so my thinking is very fast-paced, cutty. And so I think Paul comes from the world of theater. He wants to act. He wants to, find this character. And we didn't have time to do that in Repo. So right off the bat, we started butting heads very, very abruptly. And so anyway, we shoot Paul's first scene, and it just goes terribly. I don't like what he's doing. He doesn't like what I'm doing directing-wise. And immediately, it just was not okay. And midway through the very first scene, Paul Sorvino says, "You know what? Fuck this. I quit." And I said, "Excuse me?" And he's like, "Fuck this. I'm done. I'm over. I quit." And he stood up and he left. And this is in the middle of the set. So we're in the middle of the set, and Paul Sorvino leaves. So my producer comes running over and says, "Dude, if Paul Sorvino leaves, this movie this is not okay." So I had to go and I had to beg Paul to come back. And we're still like in the first week of filming Repo. So I beg him to come back. He comes back, and it was just awkward. And we get to his big scene called Gold. And we're still not really talking at this point. And he wasn't hitting it at all. It wasn't working. Gold was not working. And I think that it was lip syncing is a skill and art of its own, which when you lip sync, basically you go into a studio 6 months before the film and you have to put your performance on in just a little microphone. So his whole song was recorded 6 months earlier before he'd ever got to step on the set and knew what the character was going to be. So now he's forced to do what he did 6 months earlier. And I think that really upset him. So we get through the scene, and it's agonizing. It's pulling fucking teeth. Like, I can tell he wants to hit me. And I'm like, Big Paul, he's going to fucking punch me in the balls. So we get the scene done. There was a weekend that week, and I cut Gold together. And it was fucking great. Like, it was really fucking good. And I didn't know, I was like, should I show this to Paul? And I decided not to. We get through the end of Repo, and we ended with a mutual respect. It was just a very mutual respect. We didn't love each other, but it was whatever. So when I finish Repo, I go to New York and I rent a theater. And I screen it for Paul Sorvino. And I'm like, you know what? This guy hates me. He doesn't like me. He's going to be the most brutally honest. And I show it to him. And I remember I stood back and I watched his reaction the entire time. And the movie ended. And he just sat there staring at the screen. And I would say 30 seconds, 45 seconds, the credits had gone, it ended. And he kind of looks over at me, and I realize he's kind of teary-eyed. And I'm like, either he's going to clock me right now, execute me, do something. And he stands up, he walks over to me, and he hugs me. And he goes, "I'm sorry." He's like, "I'm sorry. I'm sorry for what I put you through. I am sorry for the way I acted." And he was like, "This is beautiful." And he said, "Thank you for making me more than a gangster." And, while he plays a tough guy in Repo, his whole thing is he gets to showcase his singing, his operatic talents. And he hugs me. We go to dinner, and we're sitting at dinner, and he says, "No matter what the project is, no matter how big, no matter how small, call me." And the answer is always yes. It's always yes. And that started our real friendship, which lasted another decade. He did 2 other movies with me. We were working on another one.
But that moment with him must have been so cathartic when he did that.
It was, but that was probably that was a great moment. But I had many moments after that are not appropriate to share on Instagram or this thing that,
of course,
just amazing things. Like I hinted at one that on Twitter that we did that, when Paul was in LA, he calls me one time and we became very close friends. He asked if I wanted to go out drinking with him. So, but it wasn't what I considered. I thought Paul was going to go to like a very old school Musso and Frank's, like old Hollywood place. No, he went to a nightclub, and he brought me. I was his wingman. And so here I walk into a nightclub. I don't go to fucking nightclubs. And I'm in a nightclub with fucking Paul Sorvino as his wingman. as he's laying
You were married at this point, though.
I was not married.
You were not married yet.
No.
Oh,
and
right. This was
he's sitting there throwing down game to all these women, and I'm like, I'm sitting in a nightclub with Paul Sorvino. So it was a great relationship. Went to his house numerous times where he cooked me dinner, and I'll tell you what, that right there in of itself is just something insane. Like going to his house while he's cooking dinner and pasta and cutting garlic like he does in Goodfellas. I mean, he was a great dude, and he's already missed, very, very much so.
Yeah. So I actually have a follow-up, but I have a couple of things I want to bring up. Richard, one of your stars of Spiral, wanted to say it's good to see you again.
Richard, what's going on, dude? I love that guy. He lost it. Wait a minute. Richard, stay there. Hold on.
Edie told me, Edie asked me if I want to send, if she could tell him we're going to be live. So she sent him the info. Hold on, Richard. I hope you're still there. Message us if you're still there. I'm sorry for the delay. I didn't want to interrupt. Get Darren's story. Oh, don't tell me. Don't tell me. I think I know what it is. Oh, God. I think I know what it is. Oh, God. Oh, God, Richard. I think I know what he's getting. I know what he's getting.
Show everyone.
Is it the fingers? Is it the fingers?
Yeah, I mean, fuck. I don't know where they are. I've got his fingers in a baggie. I have boxes back here. I'll show everyone in a minute. I have boxes of old props, and I have all of his fingers that were ripped off.
Oh, that's so funny.
Richard, your fingers are over there somewhere.
That is the best thing you've said all night. Yeah,
Yeah.
Oh God, yeah. No, here's a question from my friend Brandon. He's another host on our show. And Darren, he says, "Hey Darren, love your work. I am a longtime friend of Jesse Russo, and I am a huge admirer of Mother's Day.
Yep.
It doesn't get the recognition it deserves for its chilling suspense and great storytelling. I heard it has its ups and downs. I heard it had ups and downs through filming and post. Do you love the film after everything that has happened?"
Yeah. So Mother's Day back there, Jesse Russo is one of the actors and producers in the film. Mother's Day to me still, I would say, is probably one of my favorite of my movies. It was the one that is the most, I think that and Repo are the two movies that are the most me, meaning that I wasn't fucked with a lot. Repo, basically, they left me alone to do what I wanted. So Repo is I would say a definitive vision of something that I wanted to be. So was Mother's Day. Mother's Day was written by Scott Milam, based on a true crime that happened. It is based on Mother's Day, the Trauma classic, directed by Charlie Kaufman. But we had based it as well on a script that Scott had written called Wichita, which is a true crime story about these brothers that break into a house on Christmas and hold this family and friends hostage and send out one of the victims with ATM cards. It was a horrible thing, but we combined the idea of the IP of Mother's Day with this original story. It was plagued with nightmares from the film, the company who originally bought it getting sued. It was supposed to come out like in Mother's Day 2009. I think it came out a year and a half later. Yeah. By that point, it had already been released internationally, so there wasn't the market for it. It was a huge thing. And one of the things that was the most sad about it was Rebecca De Mornay, who is fantastic in the movie. Rebecca De Mornay is so amazing, so great. She did not like the film when it was finished because of the violence. I don't think that she realized how vicious the movie was going to be. And she's very squeamish. She is very anti-blood, anti-gore. And I think the movie was way too much for her. She saw it the first time at Sitges Film Festival. And I remember just the shock on her face. And she was like, in fact, when we were filming the movie, some of the more violent scenes we used to stand in, she couldn't even be on set. She didn't want to see it. She didn't want to be around it. So I think that when she saw it for the first time, there was such, she was taken aback. Couple that with the year and a half that it was in a lawsuit and no one could see it. It was never had the release or I think chance that if it would have come out when it was supposed to. but it's to me now it's still one of my favorite films. It's vicious as hell, and I'm excited. This is the first time I've even saying this. So Gabe, you're about to get an exclusive.
Uh-oh.
Uh, the movie that I'm doing next is actually another Scott Weiland movie. Who wrote Mother's Day, very similar in
Hmm.
tone. That'll be the next thing I'm going off and doing.
Is this the? Can I ask a question? You don't have to answer if you can't. The you went on a trip to that haunted house, and you wanted to
Yeah.
do a film based on that. Is that possibly the one you're talking about, or you can't say?
No. That's called LaLaurie.
Right.
That is based on the LaLaurie Mansion. That is I don't know what's going to happen with that.
Okay.
It is written by the Hayes brothers, who wrote the Conjuring movies.
Right. Right.
Uh,
Right.
it is a very intense film, and I think, in some
You shot it
respects,
already?
no. I mean, the script is
Oh,
the
the
script
script.
is very
Okay.
intense. It's kind of like a stick of dynamite, because you're dealing with you're dealing with themes that go back hundreds of years to horrible, despicable acts that truly took place. The true story of Madame LaLaurie is that she kidnapped, tortured, and held numerous people inside the walls of her house. A lot of those people were slaves, and it's got to be handled with very very carefully to not be exploitative. And I think that the writers did a great job of telling the story in a non-exploitative way, and not dealing with necessarily the thing which makes the house so amazing is the hauntings that took place stemmed for hundreds of years on either sides of that event as well. It's a cursed place, and I think that the house has changed hand numerous times. Nicolas Cage owned the house before the current owners do. It was a bar. It was a boarding school. It's constantly left and changed hands, and everyone that has owned it has left the property and just walked away from it. Nicolas Cage, the landlord, the landlady, or the caretaker, who was the caretaker when Nicolas Cage, is still the caretaker now of it. And hearing some of the stories that happened then versus what's happening now, I mean, this house for hundreds of years is just been a beacon of some of the most sinister, horrible things. And I, I've never experienced anything supernatural in my life, really. But in the 4 nights that I was there, there were things that happened that are so unexplainably just crazy. That it felt like at times I was being punked, that they were setting shit up just to fuck with me, but they weren't. And there's something on my Instagram that's still there about the door that we found behind the wall.
You
That,
posted something.
yeah, it looked fake. I mean, in retrospect now, going back on it, it looks like a setup for a big payoff, and it wasn't fake. And we literally had to stop filming right there, because the house has been built over so many times. When new owners take it over, they put drywall up to try to distance themselves from the initial structure of it. But I encourage, for those that are history buffs, just read about it. Read about the lurid history of this house, not only with Madame LaLaurie, but before and after. It's insane.
I regarding that, you going back to the writer of Mother's Day. Are
Yeah.
you talking about Cello, or are you talking about something else?
No, a different movie. Cello is finished.
Right, that's what I realized. I remember you were
Yeah,
finished filming already.
I actually leave to go to Toronto in about a week to start the final mix on it. That is a very unique film for me. It's 90% in Arabic.
Really?
It's Tobin Bell is in it, so I reunite with Jigsaw.
Yeah, I have. Here's a photo of you and him and Jeremy Irons.
There it is. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a crazy movie. I mean, we shot it in Ireland, in Prague, in Saudi Arabia, in Los Angeles. I mean, it's in Italy. It's a crazy globe-trotting film of just insanity.
It's very excited. I can't wait to to see the trail. I'm one of those people that goes to movies, love seeing the trailers. If I miss the trailers before the movie, it just doesn't feel the same.
I wish I could show you the trailer. I have it right here on my desktop. I have my trailer on the desktop, but I can't.
The suspense will make me
I will show
appreciate
you
my
something.
life.
Here, hold on.
Yes, sure.
The cello from the movie with the bone.
Wow.
A pelvic bone with other bones here. This is the cello from the film.
And the poster?
Do I have a poster? No, but I will. You know what I can do? Maybe.
Well, the poster one is a little different. It has
in a
like
minute,
a
I'll
tree
see if I
growing
can
out of it.
pull up, and I'll show you a picture that's not released yet of Jeremy Irons from it. But it's such a weird film, and I love that my career has allowed me to make weird movies, like weird, whether it be, not a lot of people know this, but I went to Japan and spent 4.5 months there and shot this TV series called Crow's Blood, which is in all Japanese. And going from something like that to doing theater to then going to, shoot a movie in Arabic. I mean, I've had a pretty crazy career.
Well, you know me, I'm a musician. That's why I love movies that surround like an instrument or music. So like I know Samuel Jackson. You worked with Samuel Jackson on Spiral. The Red Violin is one of the most underrated, underappreciated films that I love that he's in. Like I've always loved that film. But I just want to mention back on Mother's Day. Earlier you're talking about how you have films. You have like the Johnny Depp to your the Johnny Depps to your Tim Burtons, meaning the actors that return. Mother's Day also, you have Tony Napo, you have Alexa Vega, you have Lyric Bend, and then you bring in some new names. What's her name from the Vampire Show? Deborah Ann Wall and Brianna Evigan, who you end up bringing back, from Step Up 2, who you ended up bringing in for The Devil's Carnival and back again for Alleluia.
Yeah, Brianna Evigan. One of the things that I really try to do in my career, and I've been very, again, fortunate, is I work with people that I admire or I like. So I remember it was Valentine's Day. I was in the movies with my wife, fiance at the time, Laura, and we saw Step Up. And I love fucking dance movies. I love musicals. And I remember sitting in Step Up 2, and I looked over to Laura and I said, "Oh yeah, I'm casting her." And she's like, "No, you're not." And I was like, "No, I'm casting her the next thing I do." And I cast her in this NBC show called Fear Itself. And she was one of those people that was just so fun and so just like down to earth that I just kept putting her in stuff. Brianna Evigan was great and an amazing dancer. And then Deborah Ann Wall, I was watching True Blood at the time, and I loved True Blood. But throughout my career, I mean, nothing more than The Devil's Carnival. I mean, that's just literally a who's who of people that I was watching. Ted Neely, who was Jesus and Jesus Christ Superstar. Barry Bostwick from Rocky Horror Picture Show.
Yes.
Adam Pascal of Rent. And that doesn't just go necessarily for movies, but it also goes for magic. You're
big on magic.
Yeah, I love magic, and I see a magician in the room right now, Chris Mayhews. Hello, Chris. But I love magic, and so I abuse what little power that I have, and I seek out these magicians, and I become friends. Like I put Chris Ramsey, who's a great sleight of hand artist, magician, thinker, puzzle maker, puzzle doer. He's in Spiral. He's the guy that gets his leg broken by Chris Rock. I'm working on a project right now with a huge fan of mine, fan of his, Penn from Penn and Teller.
Wow.
I literally reached out to a friend of mine, Adam Rifkin, directed Penn in a movie called Director's Cut. And I said, dude, I got to meet Penn. And so he connected us, and now Penn and I became friends. And so I really get to work with these people that I admire and am fans of, and I'll continue to do that. So every movie I put someone in there that I geek out about when they show up to set.
Yeah, it's like but also it's like fans of you will recognize even the small ones with the small roles, like Alexa Vega, who was the girl standing at the ATM scene you brought up. She was the girl during the robbery at the ATM scene, or and then, but also,
by the way, that scene what made me want to make the movie, and that scene is very similar to what actually happened in the real case. Just a disgusting fact that no one really needs to know about. But that scene, the ATM scene, was why I wanted to make that movie. AJ Cook and Alexa Vega,
right?
Patrick Fluger is the guy Ike in it. I still love that scene.
Yeah. But I will tell you, because you mentioned Du Maurier found the movie very too graphic. In all honesty, in my opinion, to me, it was the most graphic film that you've done that I've seen. I think the only one I probably haven't seen is Saint Agatha yet. That's the only one I think I haven't seen that you've done. But because that movie's more realistic. Like when a film is more realistic, the gore in it is more impactful. When it's like, meaning when it's in a home, it's not
me,
some
yeah. For me, it comes down to, there was a movie I saw,
home invasion.
there was
Sorry.
a very I guess impactful movie on me as a filmmaker. Last House on the Left, the original one, Wes Craven, and there's a scene in it that today still disturbs me, and it's a scene where the three killers, or the three villains in this, a guy named Krug, Freddy Krueger, by the way, of Wes Craven, but Krug just gets done carving his name in this woman's chest after sexually harassing her and doing horrible things. And there's a moment where she is crawling away from him, and she's crawling to the water, and these villains are picking the blood and grass out of their hand, and they're doing it. And then there's a moment of disgust that comes over all of them. Like, what the fuck have we just done? And there's a momentary, maybe 5 seconds of remorse that these killers have. And that fucked me up more than anything, because it showed humanity in the most vile, evil people. And it stuck with me, because normally I wasn't used to that. Normally the villain is just vile. They're villainous. But in this moment, in that 5 seconds, it made me look at them as people and not killers. And I thought that would be really interesting to do that more on something like Mother's Day, where while each of these people are horrible, they're doing it for what they believe to be just. That's after their own family. There's moments of regret. There's moments of self-reflection. And to me, that is utterly disturbing. That is the most horrifically disturbing thing you can do, is to portray humanity and villains like that are doing the things they do. So that's why I like Mother's Day quite a bit.
It's real. It's a horror movie, but it's realistic. Like it's like just like Last House on the Left. Actually, two of the first guests I have in my show were Jeremy Dreyfuss and Mark Scheffler, who were two of those two of the villains that you're talking about. I think there were 4 in total, but 3 of them were really the main ones. Yeah. But also, okay, so I have a few questions. Also, Kristen Brown says, ask him for an update on Tension, please.
That's my response to Kristen Brown.
What was that?
No, I flipped her off, and I said that is my response to the Tension experience. It is. For those that don't know, it's a kind of living, breathing ARG, which is an alternate reality game that myself and some other people have been building and creating over the course of the last 5 or 6 years. There's not enough time in this podcast or this interview to even to touch on what it is, but it is a narrative in which the audience shapes and creates along with the actors and creators, and lines between what is scripted and not begin to blur. So, after a few months, you don't know what's real and what's not anymore. And that is what the Tension experience is. I've been promising and threatening a return for years. And that's the great part, is at some point it's going to happen, and no one's going to know when it is, or if this is actually the return, or I'm just fucking with them. Yeah.
I guess I saw there was a little bit of conflict there, but friendly conflict.
Hold on one second.
Sure.
I gotta try to find something really quick. Hold on one second. I'll show you my office in a second. But hold on.
By the way, your office is like my room, which is also my office.
There they are. I just got to turn the light on. There they
found
are.
the fingers. Richard, is Richard? You still here?
Richard, they're your fingers.
I'll send him the video, and I'll tell him what point in the to find them. Yeah.
A funny story about Spiral is when I was leaving Toronto, I wanted to take I always take props back with me. I mean, like, I have everything from every movie that I think is cool. Like,
you have the tape
helmet,
yes,
or
the bat from Saw 2. You have the bat from Saw 2, right?
I do. Yeah, it is one.
There's one of the main bat.
So anyway, I was leaving Toronto on this last one on Spiral, and I had forgotten that I put the shotgun shells that riddle Samuel L. Jackson, and some of them were not spent yet. No, they're all not real. They're all just they're dummy shells, but they're shotgun shells, and so. I'm going across the border, and I get stopped by TSA, and they said, "Excuse me, sir, we're gonna have to look in your carry-on here." And I totally forgotten about it. And they open it up and they pull out all of these shotgun shells, and I was not allowed to bring them across the border. So those are still remaining
Confiscated
somewhere in
somewhere.
Toronto.
Yeah. It's fun. You know, it's funny you say that because Robert Englund has. When I first met him, that was he told me a similar story. He has the original Freddy glove, or he had other ones too, and he was driving up to Canada, and they wouldn't. The security wouldn't allow him through because they were real metal. They were weapons. But one of the security staff who knew who he was, this was years ago, says, "I know who he is. Just let him through. Just let him through." Like, honestly, if I was there, I would have said, "Just let him through. It's a movie prop, you know." Like,
I was one of the few fan conventions I did. I brought Billy right where I can't point my.
Oh no, we see him. We see him.
Yeah, there he is.
Yeah.
Okay. Wait, there he is. I brought him across, and he was on my carry-on, and I was behind or in front of Matthew Lillard, who was also there.
Seeing him this weekend. I'm seeing him in 3 days.
Yeah. So I remember I was going through, and security stopped me, and they made me pull him out. And I remember I took him out of the bag, and like everyone wanted pictures with them, and it was just like, how do I explain this to TSA?
Was this on the way to Dallas? Was this on the way to Dallas?
I don't remember. I've only it had to have been because that's the main one I've done. So I had to take him out and show TSA that he was not some sort of bomb. He was just a puppet.
You know, I regret. I mean, I had a saw puppet sitting right here on this tricycle, signed by Tobin, Betsy, and Dina Meyer. And it would have been great to have, as I say, synchronicity. You have the swap up there, I have the swap up there. Richard says, "So gross, LOL, send me the middle finger." If you're able to find out which one is, if you're able to figure out which is the severed finger.
You know, I've said this, and it really bums me out. And I think people think I'm just fucking around. First off, I have no pull with Lionsgate. So everyone, I've seen a couple people asking about Leprechaun. They did not hire me. They didn't call me. They wouldn't return my calls about Leprechaun. But I would love my director's cut. There's things in the director's cut. First off, in Spiral. Yeah. First off, I do believe the theatrical version is better than my cut, but there are a lot of things that had to go from the original cut. For number one, timing. Number two, to make the MPA happy. You know, I had transitions. Everyone asked about the transitions I did in Saw 2, 3, and 4. They were in Spiral. They were cut out of Spiral. But the scene of the fingers is so much more vicious, so much longer. I mean, I want to say it's 2.5 minutes longer, my cut of it.
Wow. Longer than it was, as opposed to 2.5 minutes.
Yeah, wow. Just that scene. The MPAA did not want to see more than one finger fully go, and they couldn't. I think I couldn't hold longer than 4 seconds on the tendrils popping. In the actual cut, you see every finger break, dislodge, bones pop out, bones break, splinter. I mean, it was intense as fuck. And I think in the movie, it's maybe 12 seconds now of what's left. It was, and it kills me because I watch so much TV, and there's just as much violence on, you know, FX shows, on other things than there is on Spiral. But Spiral, they were upset. They did not want to let it go through. The MPA was not happy with that movie.
Stephen King's It, they showed an 8-year-old boy get his arm ripped off. I don't know how it, like a man, you know.
Well, I mean, Stranger Things. I mean, in Stranger Things, you're watching kids tortured and break backwards.
Yes,
and,
exactly.
All of that. I just, again, since I pulled the saw box out of Spiral, things that no one have seen, at least I don't think of it out there. Some of the actual drawings. There's the guy getting hit by the train.
Right. Yeah, Boz.
Yeah, this is. These are
the original hand-drawn storyboard.
Yeah, these are the original drawings. There's the glass trap.
Wow.
I'll show you ones that didn't make it.
You're right. There was a trap that didn't make it. That you said it wasn't serious enough or something.
Well, there's a lot. I mean, there's so much stuff that we're going to do that never ended up making the movie.
Right.
Let's see if I can find one that didn't make the film.
While you're doing that, may I? I just wanted to, you know, what was it called? You're talking about different cuts, like the director's cut, and you've also said before that the director's cut isn't necessarily always better than the theatrical cut. To be honest with you, of Saw 2, 3, and 4, the only one I like the unrated cut better is Saw 2. Because even though Saw 4, the theatrical cut, the director's cut of Saw 4 fixes continuity things, like when Rig puts the jacket on what's her name in the couple trap with the spikes going through.
Yeah.
You don't he doesn't pull out the spike from her in the theatrical cut. So when he puts it on her, it just doesn't make sense. He pulls her, and then when the key that Kerry left for Strom and Perez, when he doesn't use it in the theatrical cut, but he uses it in the unrated cut. However, I still like the theatrical cut better because I think the scenes I like the whole reveal of Hoffman was better.
You have to remember though that when you do a director's cut, they're never finished. There's no music, there's no sound design, there's no color correction. Usually if you're watching that, they'll put the cutout in the most raw form. I think one of the best ideas that never happened was the Saw 3. Wait, was it Saw 3? It was Saw 3.
The glass box, you think?
No, the director's cuts. Hold on. This is where I get confused. So you got to give me a second.
No problem.
No, it was Saw 4. If you would have gone and we would have done, if Lyric and I were to have done what was originally intended for that, the original, we talk about it in the director's commentary, that would have been a cooler ending, a cooler thing. But one of the problems comes down to length. For example, a Saw movie can't be over 100 minutes. They don't want it to be. So you're cutting tons of shit out, shit that are either character-based, shit that will fill logic holes to service the playability of the movie. So, there are huge logic things that fans will pick apart that we've shot the answer to that too, but due to timing, we're not allowed to put it in the movie, or there's just not time for it. And and that's on every movie, not Saw films per se, any film. The whole politics that go on in the final stages of a movie, things that have to go, things that have to stay.
Post-production
I found something really good I want to show you that I think is pretty cool. So there was no doll in the original script of Spiral. I really fought to have something in there. So I'm finding the original artist drawings of the ideas for what the doll could be before it was a pig. And so these are just dolls that we were looking at. Well, eventually this guy came until Mr. Snuggles came. It's funny because I remember in the initial script, there was no doll. There was no anything like that. I mean, I am looking here at 50 renderings of ideas for puppets,
That's
just
crazy.
different puppet ideas of what they could be.
I think it was perfect because it was relevant, and for the sake of also the final scene, let alone the storyline. That's why it was perfect. Also, the whole
I agree. The idea of the police and the kind of look at the police, the idea of a pig. The idea of the marionette puppet, your strings being pulled, organically, it all just came together. My biggest champion on that movie behind the scenes was Josh Stolberg, the writer, who I remember calling him one night and I said, what if we did a pig marionette? And I pitched the logic behind that. And I think, he was really back channeling to get that through the producers. Cause I think at that time, there was such a desire to kind of stay away from the tropes of the original Saw franchise, and a doll being one of them. We had made the decision early on not to do the doll, and when I think when that realization happened, that what if it's a pig and what if it's a marionette, and that's how Samuel Jackson's original trap took place with rats in a swimming pool. So we had to unwind all of this stuff to get that to work, and luckily the producers allowed it at the very last. I mean, literally, it was 4 days from filming that they allowed this thing to happen.
I actually wasn't there something regarding a type of scene that I don't know if it was filmed or not in Saw 4 regarding rats and Tobin Bell's character? Was there something originally meant to be done? Because I remember this
really, really drunk during the process of making it. No, I'm joking. I don't remember. The only thing I can remember on rats was the rats crawling out of Carrie when they found Carrie. I don't remember. I don't remember a scene of Tobin with rats in Saw 4 that I had, but
I wasn't sure.
Again, that absolutely could have been. I'm pretty. That's so funny. I'm gonna get in trouble for showing this. Here was the original trap that Samuel Jackson was supposed to be in with the pool and the rats.
That would be that's Bone Collector-esque sort of in a sense.
This is great. I have so much. I don't throw shit away. I just keep everything. So I have all the renderings from all the every movie I've done of just concept art and whatnot.
Jacob actually asked that, and I don't know if you can answer this question. Was it Detective Drury's trap that was cut?
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't. I wanted to dispel a rumor. It wasn't necessarily a trap, but I think I called it a trap. It wasn't. It was a gruesome death scene.
Okay.
But yeah, there was a couple of kind of vicious things cut from Spiral. Not only there was a lot more violence in Spiral. Not only traps, but people getting shot, people being stabbed. There was a scene where Chris Rock goes to a staircase and there's a police officer sitting on the staircase and he's trying to get information. That scene was much longer, where you saw his arm falling off basically and massive gashes. You saw tendrils and bone. Like there was a lot of stuff that was cut that no one ever saw. It was just violence.
But it was filmed. It was filmed.
It was all filmed. Yeah.
It was all filmed.
The original cut is about, my original thing I turned in is about 45 minutes longer. It's the one that has the transitions in it. It's got the Drury scene in it that people are talking about. It's got all of that in there. But I think it was too long and it was too arty. I think that one of the notes that came back early on was, I really tried to do something different with Spiral. And it just felt, I mean, the Saw franchise is a commercial franchise. And I think some of the choices that I made early on was maybe a little too arty. Some of the transitions were too long and kind of self-masturbatory.
Think about like Saw 4 with Brenda and Rig through the glass.
They were that bigger.
Was very quick.
Like an example, if you remember when Max Minghella character is talking to Chris Rock, and he's basically reminding Chris why we got there. It goes to flashbacks. Originally, Max would walk past Chris, and all the walls would shift, and they would walk into their own flashback. And so Chris would really quickly, as he walked into it, they would switch his costume so he'd be back into the past as he walked, and without cutting. And then the set would fall, and they're back into the real world. But it was
almost like stage, like theatrical. Theatrical. Yeah,
very. And I think that's why they were cut. Is that it was almost, again, it's self
overkill.
It was, yeah. It was like, hey, look how cool we are. We're doing these cool shots. Yeah. And so I think that we just decided that they had to go because it was taking the focus off of the story and more about look how cool this shot is. So that was
Saw 4 did it quickly. Like the transitions like you did, whether it be through the glass into the next room, or whether when Hoffman went this way and Rig took his shirt off from from door to door, like it was very quick. So it wasn't, or like when you went from Troy's J. La Rose's trap to like Carrie's bathroom, it worked and it was quick enough, and it didn't seem too over. It didn't seem too much. Yeah.
Yeah. These were not. These were not. These were pretty.
What happened?
No, my thick camera went away. No, these were a lot. They were a lot bigger, I think.
Yeah. Oh, my friend Brandon has a question. Watched another very wild film. I love this one of yours earlier. This film, it was called Death of Me. It was great seeing Maggie Q deliver a very challenging and dark role. Any stories from shooting this one?
Pass.
I
did not have a great time on that film. I loved Thailand and I loved the producers on the film, but it was a hard movie for a multitude of reasons. Number one, so when I went out to Thailand, I was supposed to come back before we started filming. I didn't come home, and I went out there with a tooth infection. I had an infected root canal, and so when the dentist says, "Hey, listen, we have to pull this tooth," I said, "Listen, I got to go to Thailand and do a location scout. Can we just wait?" And he said, "Okay, I'm going to put you on antibiotics, but the tooth has to go." So I go out to Thailand, and I didn't come home, and I did not want to have my tooth pulled in Thailand. So they kept me on antibiotics, which was a bad mistake because your body's not supposed to have antibiotics consistently for 3 months. So I was on antibiotics and I was drinking a lot. That's drinking antibiotics doesn't go great. Secondly, it was the hottest month of the year there. So it's 100 degrees, 104 degrees, 5 degrees, and it's sweltering heat and it's humid. And a lot of places there don't have air conditioning where we were shooting. We were shooting in a lot of places that didn't have air conditioning. So because of the mosquitoes, these mosquitoes are bats there, and they have something called dengue fever. You have to basically wear sweaters and long sweatpants because you can't have any of your skin exposed. So you're walking around with massive long sleeve shirts, long sleeve pants, hoods over your head. sweltering, antibiotics. Now, to add to it, I ended up getting a parasite on the 3rd or 4th week of shooting. And so to try to kill the parasite, they put me on more medicine that counteracted with the thing that I was on. So the whole experience to me was just me being sick the entire time I was there. I was just sick the entire time. So it was also a very hard shoot. I think we shot the movie in, nothing, like 16 days. I'm making that number up, but it was a very, very quick shoot.
That was the first Saw film too, like 16, 18 days. Yeah.
Yeah. So it was a very quick shoot, which means that you don't have time. Like you're just rushing.
You're hustling.
Yeah. So, but I loved the movie. I look at that experience as one that I'd like to forget, just because of the emotional turn. But I'm joking. It was just, I've worked with that producer. The producer, Lee Nelson and EMA, David Tish, are who did my Saudi Arabia film as well. So I love those dudes, and I love working with those guys. I just don't ever want to get a parasite while on massive antibiotics in a 100-degree heat ever again.
By the way, you sounded like some of my friends, like, oh yeah, I shouldn't really be doing this, but yeah, I'm going to do it anyway. Like, this is probably going to put me in the hospital tomorrow, but yeah, I'm going to do it anyway. Like something like that. I have certain friends who literally would do that to themselves.
I became really, really good friends with the guy who plays her husband in it, a Hemsworth brother.
Luke, yeah.
Wow. And Luke and I would go to the local pubs at the very end of the day, or we'd go get a pina colada at the end of work. And there was a fateful mistake that I made that I regret sorely, which is I had a pina colada and I had the ice, which you should never have. You should have filtered water or whatever. And that ice is what gave me the parasite, which made me sick. And it was rough. I paid dearly for that.
You paid dearly for that friendship.
Yeah, that was no, but it was a great time. Anytime you get to go to a different country, it's amazing. I've been lucky that I've been able to shoot all over the world, and getting to go. We shot a lot of the movie in Krabi, which is basically 10 minutes from where they shot the beach, the Leonardo DiCaprio movie. Mm-hmm. So if you've seen the beach, that kind of locale. Yeah, it was a beautiful place. I was just sick the entire time we made it.
Well, if it's any consolation, I envy anybody who's traveled the world. The only places outside of North America I've been to was Israel, London to refuel for 2 hours on the way back, and the Bahamas on the 2 Walking Dead cruises. But to Canada and America, like I haven't traveled much of the world, and I still would love to. But I don't go on vacation much. I don't even go on family vacations much. But what I was going to say was also you were also all the way earlier, you were talking about Paul Sorvino and having sort of a rough start with an actor. I know you have a few really funny stories about not just Donnie Wahlberg but Samuel Jackson. I know we're nearing an hour. Would you be okay with going over an hour?
Sure. Yeah.
Just want to make sure. So first, if you could, I remember you spoke about the story when you also, I just want to mention, you talked about how your vision, the way you film, the way you direct. And that's another thing. I remember hearing Chris Rock being interviewed about, he loved your style. He liked the way you filmed. That's why, again, I want to ask you the story about Donnie Wahlberg, because I remember you told the story at the beginning. He was a little hesitant. Can you tell the story? And also, can you go into the shirt? Can you start with the shirt story with Donnie Wahlberg from the set of Saw 2?
Oh, the New Kids on the Block.
Yes, please.
I was a punk when I went to do Saw 2. Hey, Morgan, go fuck yourself. So,
you know who that is. You know who that guy is.
So, So listen, I should never have directed Saw 2. Like, I'd never done anything. I didn't know what I was doing, but I was giddy and I was excited and I was passionate. And I was a huge fan of New Kids on the Block. I'm not going to lie to you. I loved them. And I had a New Kids on the Block shirt. And so when we got Donnie Wahlberg, this is way before Blue Bloods. I mean, he had just done Sixth Sense, which was a cameo. I mean, his scene in Sixth Sense was I
didn't even realize that was him.
Yeah, I mean, he's maybe a minute. And so I'm freaking out that we have Donnie Wahlberg. And I remember the first day that he comes on set, I had a New Kids on the Block shirt on. And I think it was a lightning bolt on it. They were on it and it said hanging tough. And I remember that I walk on set with it, and his assistant was this guy comes running, the guy named Joe comes running down. He goes, "What the fuck?" Very Boston. "What the fuck are you doing?" And I was like, "I'm showing props to my man Donnie." He goes, "Take that fucking shirt off." And I was forced to take the shirt off and turn it inside out, because if Donnie saw it, he would have lost his goddamn mind. Cut to 10 years later, he's going to fucking amphitheaters, New Kids on the Block, singing Hanging Tough. But he was not a fan. But yeah, Donnie and I had a really rough start. I was a punk. I didn't,
early 20s, right? It was like
I was
early
25 when I shot it, 24 when I was hired. And I think that Donnie didn't trust me. And I shot it very much like a music video. The way that the ideas that I had came from the music video world. Like the flash frames. I did that practically in camera, turning on and off the camera while the camera was rolling. That would create the light burst that became a staple of the Saw films. The transition. Yeah, the crazy sporadic motion was done in camera. I took the lens and took it out of the camera and shook the lens as the film was going to create that look. That's not post. That wasn't digital effects. That was all in camera. So I think Donnie came in and saw me doing this shit and was like, "What the fuck is this?" And I remember there was a scene, and the scene that I think you're talking about that he really had a problem with was it was right after he found out that his son Daniel had been taken, and he goes back into the cage with all the monitors, and Carrie is there. And I wanted him to walk forward to the chain link fence, and I wanted him to give me 5 unique expressions at a 10. I said, laugh, like at a 10, just laugh. Then I want you to like slap your face. Then I want you to punch. And then I want you to stand there and be completely stoic. And he's like, "What the fuck am I doing?" And I was like, "Donnie, just please trust me." He's like, "This is fucking ridiculous." And I had him do it, but he was angry, and I could tell he didn't trust me. A couple days later, I edited as I went. I showed that scene to Lyric Bent, who Lyric and I clicked right away. Just almost immediately, Lyric and I became friends. And Lyric goes, "Oh my God, dude, you got to show this to Donnie." And I was like, "I don't want to show it to Donnie." He's like, "No, dude, go show it to Donnie." So I showed it to Donnie, and that was it. At that moment, he trusted me. He saw that scene, what I was doing, and he was like, "This is fucking cool." And he backed me. Donnie became on Team Darren before he wasn't. And so I think that it took me showing that I knew what I was doing a little bit for him to actually go in and trust me.
Yeah, and I know, like, he was sworn to secrecy about Saw 3 and Saw 4.
Yeah.
And I love that you brought him back.
I begged him on Saw 4 to come back. He was not in the script, the original script of Saw 4. And I begged him. And I remember that I think he had just started doing a tour of New Kids, or there was something that he was doing. And I was like, "Listen, 5 days in and out." And he's like, he said something like, "Motherfucker, if this better be easy. It better be a goddamn cameo. Do not do something fucking stupid with me." I was like, "I'm not, Donnie." And then he shows up, and I'm like, "Can you just stand on this block of ice for 5 straight days and have this beard put on you?" He was not happy, but it made me very happy.
Can I tell you something? It's interesting. That's one of my top 3 favorite Saw traps. I have a very unique taste. Like, my number 1 favorite trap is actually in Kevin Greuter's, one of Kevin Greuter's. It's the Iron Pig, the Brazen Bull in Saw 3D. But the other 2 favorite traps of mine are your films. It's the Puppet Trap with Samuel Jackson and the Ice Block Trap. Because I like the traps that act like a twist in themselves. Like, you don't see it coming. You don't know how it's going to play out. Like, that's what Saw's known for. But I love the traps that are like either like psych you out. Either it's a red herring like the Puppet Trap, or it's something like, what exactly is going to happen?
Well, I like Samuel Jackson's trap is one of my favorites, and it was kind of disheartening because there was such backlash to Spiral's ending, because I think people thought the twist was William was the serial killer, and that was never the twist to us. Like, we thought people were going to get that right off the bat.
Yeah.
To us, the twist is that this was all set up to take Samuel Jackson down in the same manner of which he'd been taunting everyone with: the puppet, the pig, the raising of the gun, all of this kind of stuff. It was never about William being the serial killer.
It wasn't about the Who. It wasn't the Who.
Yeah, it wasn't. And at that point, we thought that the fans were smart enough, they're going to figure this out. But I did not think they were going to figure out the Samuel Jackson thing with the gun and the cop shooting him.
And a lot of people, I don't think anybody I know did. Like,
they were so hung up because a lot of the other Saw films, the twist was always the Who. Who is doing it? Who's the protege? Who is the whatever? And that wasn't what this one was about to us. It was not about that. So but I love the Samuel L. Jackson one as well. It's a good one.
Well,
And
you
you
told,
asked,
yeah.
you asked another question. You said, tell you about the Paul Sorvino. There was
No,
another
I
question.
was saying because you talked about how Paul didn't trust you at first and Donnie, but also Samuel Jackson, because you mentioned
Well,
like
he
his.
still doesn't trust me. He didn't like me. Yeah, it's funny. There are, I would say 97% of the actors that I've worked with, I'm friends with today. I talk to them on the phone. They come over for barbecues. I mean, Paul Sorvino, he would come over to our house and just have barbecues and drink wine and help court. And I think Stephen Moyer from the Barons, even Rebecca De Mornay, even after this whole thing. I mean, every single one of them. Tobin Bell, Samuel Jackson. Who's that?
Alex Esso? Like her, I
Yes,
know.
Alex. Yeah,
She's the
Alex.
sweetest.
Absolutely.
I love her.
She was fantastic, and we still
Yeah.
talk. But Samuel Jackson had no. He didn't want to be friends. He didn't want to socialize. He was there for a job, and you know what? He was awesome. He came in and he killed it. Like he was fantastic. And I think that he was one of the few actors that made me really self-conscious because, with Chris Rock and I, we bonded immediately. Like immediately. We had breakfast together and then we started just hanging out. We would hang out. It was so crazy.
He seems like that's just him.
Well, it is. And I think that for me, I'm such a sociable person and I don't care. I'm not about the Hollywood scene. I'm just about, I'm not curing cancer. I'm fucking ripping fingers off. It's not rocket science is what I'm doing here. And so it should be fun. And I want to have a good time on set and I want to have fun with the actors and the people and the crew. And so I think that there was a lot of spiral me trying to get Sam Jackson to like me, which probably is comical in retrospect because he had no desire to like me. And so me trying, like I was like trying to make him laugh or trying to do whatever, he just wasn't having it. So yeah, Sam Jackson was not, he just was there to be a badass. And that's what he is. Sam Jackson's a badass. That's what he does.
Can I tell you something? But that's the horror. I wouldn't say it's like not even people who are not just in horror movies, but from going to the horror cons and all these, not New York Comic Con. I mean, I've been going to horror events long before that. The horror community, the fans, the actors, the most chill, down to earth. It's always the one who play villains: Kane Hodder, Leatherface, Jason, Freddy, Michael Myers. Some of the giant teddy bears, some of the nicest people in Hollywood play the biggest villains. You know this. You've worked with some of them. And it's just like you also had in the Alleluia, what's his name? The musician, who I also like. What's his name? How am I forgetting the name? He's a rapper.
Oh, Tech Nine.
Tech Nine, yeah. And I wait, he's in this? I caught cameos I didn't see coming.
There was, and it sucks that part 3 never happened because in part 2 we had too many people at that point. By the time we did part 2,
such a
Hallelujah, we had such I guess a legacy because of Repo and now this, that people were calling us that wanted to do it. And some of the people's names that we couldn't put in. So originally we had William Shatner in it. William Shatner fell off a horse a week before and broke a clavicle or something. And so we had to replace William Shatner. But we had some crazy musicians, some crazy people from The Who, just insane people that, I want to say some of the names that I can't, we just had some crazy people. And so the third one, again, it was gearing up to be a huge who's who of just fuckery. Tech Nine, are you kidding me? That guy's amazing.
Yeah. But also, I want to, Alex, I'll say Alex Esso's a sweetheart. She laps. We clicked also, when I met her she was like a last minute addition to Monster Mania, which I'm going to this weekend. And we just became instant friends. We have so much in common. She instantly loved my jokes and loved me. She's such a cool person. But Costas, also, you're talking about how some people in the horror films are squeamish. Costas, I think, at one point said he's squeamish, and even Tobin Bell's not a big horror fan. I think his favorite film is Jacob's Ladder, which is more like a real life horror than a horror genre film.
I find the people that are, people like Rebecca De Mornay that are very squeamish is a lot more than you would expect. Yeah. And Tobin was never, if you ask Tobin, it's never about the violence. That's not what Saw is about. Saw is about the story, the characters, the emotion, the emotional core of what the thing is. And I'm excited for people to see him in Cello, because what bummed me out about the last 4 Saw films or 3, he dwindled down. The character dwindled down, so he almost became a cameo. Like he was in like 1 second, he would say some line that tied back into Saw 1 or 2, and he was
Wait,
gone.
who is this?
Tobin. I'm saying that in
Tobin.
the
Oh,
last
yeah.
few Saw films, he the character dwindled down. And I was bummed that we couldn't put him in Spiral. Like we were trying to make Spiral its own thing. It killed me that we couldn't put him in Spiral. And then right afterwards, to be able to work with him and bring him to the Middle East, bring him to Prague. I'm excited for people to see the stuff because he approaches everything about character and the emotion. And I think that's why Saw is successful, is Tobin Bell demanded that the killer have a heart. He has a message. That was Tobin. Tobin demanded that. And I think it reads in everything he does.
But you like also you're one of those directors that you knew that Tobin knew his character. You let him have his he knew the character intimately. Like even Costas would tell us how on the cruise, like, but he told the story many times, but like how he would be waking up at 2 a.m. at the hotel getting a call from Tobin, say, come to my room. And they would walk the streets of Toronto for hours just talking intimate conversations about the characters.
Well, there are scenes in Cello where Tobin's only in it for 10 seconds, a specific scene. And he would want to talk about that scene longer than some of the leads would want to talk about their scenes that are in the entire thing. Tobin approaches every second that he's on screen with the utmost care. And I mean, he really breaks everything down. I mean, you can't have Tobin in the background of a scene without devoting hours to explaining to him the reasons why he's in that scene and why it's important for his character. And I think that that's why he excels at every scene or movie that he's in.
Yeah. Even the films with small roles, like The Firm, he was a side character, but even then, he just had that. He was a good villain, even though he was working for Ernie. What's his name? Wilford Brimley's character. He just had that dark aura around him. I don't know what to call it.
Yeah,
but and it's funny because him and Bruce Willis, I think you know this, were extras together in Paul Newman's film. What was it, The Verdict?
The Verdict.
Yeah, they were like 2 extras in the. Just interesting. And Costas actually recently did a film with Bruce Willis, Cosmic Sin, though it didn't get the super such a good response.
I run into Costas once a quarter at the most random places, steakhouses, bars.
Is he in LA now?
He was. I mean, like,
he was. Yeah.
I'm trying to think. The last time I ran into him though was at a convention, and it was like I hadn't seen him in 7 years. It was like 7 minutes. Like it was just like it was right back to the last time we talked.
That was not Dallas because you spent a lot of time with him on the panel and with Rob.
No, it was after that. But yeah, he's oh, you know what's funny? We have this ongoing joke that he was in this movie called Mobsters.
I love that film.
So I always joke about Mobsters with him, and I found a VHS of Mobsters, and I brought it to his table and asked him to sign it. And so he signed Mobsters, and then I'll like put it online to sell it, and I'll send him the thing like, hey, your movie's at like 7 cents today. Like it's
since you were pulling out props, I have a Mobsters production use script right here.
Wow,
like an old I bought an auction like a few months ago. But I actually reached out to him last night to tell him to check out the show, but he's very hit or miss with it when I can reach him.
Costas, I'll text that guy after this is over.
Please, and he actually, hold on 1 second. 2014, I brought copies to him the first time the time I saw him before we chilled in Dallas. He asked me to print out copies of this. He did a charity soccer game with Jason Statham and Vinnie Jones.
Yeah.
He used to be a soccer player before he was an actor.
Yeah.
Huge. I remember, and Dallas, he was in crutches the whole weekend, and on the cruise he was getting back injections, he told me even when he did Saw, he had to be careful, with some of the scenes.
He's one of those guys. It's funny that time, I look back on that time between Scott Patterson and Costas and all those guys. We all lived in the same hotel. We all ate at the dinner at the same time. We all, went to the same bars. And it was this, for these multiple years, it was this dysfunctional, crazy, weird family that lived together. And I don't know now if I'll ever have an experience quite like those 3 years making 2,
Yeah.
3, and 4 together. Because I have a family now, I have kids, I have dogs, I have a mortgage. I can't be away for that long. But
Yeah.
when I was 24 years old and didn't know anyone, I was just, living in fucking Toronto in a hotel for years, hanging out with Costas Mandalore every night, and
It's a
that's
freaking
dangerous.
life. Yeah.
Hanging,
He's
that's a dangerous thing, hanging out with Costas Mandalore.
if it's by the way, I know what you're talking about.
Wait,
He said I could tell the story after the cruise is over, which has been literally 10 years next week. So I can say this. We were at the roulette table 2 nights in a row. Like I lost more money because I was having so much fun with him at the roulette table that I didn't want to leave. So it was just me and him, and he was hitting all the female dealers. We were just quoting, making movie references, and every time we both back in, I quote The Godfather just so they thought it was out. They pulled me back in, and I would like if I spent more time with him, I probably would have gotten drunk, which I didn't, thankfully, because I had like 2 drinks the
you
whole
don't
week.
want to get drunk with Costas.
No, I know.
That ends in jail. That's not not a fun
But
thing.
I slept late the next morning, and we were interviewed on the news, and I didn't get to get interviewed. But however, it's worked out because Mark Ralston, who I'm seeing this weekend from SoFi, spoke about me on the news, and that's better than me being interviewed as having one of the actors. Yeah. Do you have to go soon? Or I don't want to. If you have
Yeah,
to,
in about 10 minutes. Both I just
minutes?
I think I told you this. I'll tell my wife and my daughter got COVID today.
Yeah.
And so I have to make sure they're both breathing and not throwing up on the kitchen floor somewhere.
So we'll do 5 minutes. I don't want to hold you up. Family comes first. Family comes first. And also, like Lily, I literally told people when you said that, I said this might be a 2-parter, so stay tuned. So like when you said like we might have to reschedule something, like this might be a 2-parter. So because I was sending the link around, I have a lot of friends who like saw. I've had friends I've gotten into. Lily, I told you last night I was catching my friend up who I wanted him to check out the show, but I wanted to catch him up on the we're up to Spiral. Like I showed him each and every film, and I also took him to see the new Liam Neeson movie, which Costas' brother Lewis is in. Memory. Costas' Oh, look who it is. Tori
Spelling.
Wow.
Tori, what happened? You used to like me, you used to call, we used to talk, had long like discussions. Now I don't even think you follow me anymore on Instagram, Tori. You're too cool for me.
Well, that was like I had to that's out of nowhere. Hold on. Does Darren have a favorite current franchise and classic horror film? I think I already know the answer, but
well, it changes now. My son is approaching 8 years old, and I've started. He wants. I brought him to set. Just the other day, I shot something, and it was a very vicious scene. I wanted him to see like how makeup works. So he got to, and one of the people in the room right now, Morgan, was an actor and got to be crushed in a very brutal, horrible way. And so my son got to sit and watch Morgan get the prosthetics on and then see how he shot it. And it was pretty awesome. And he took an interest and was like, I want to know more about this. And he wanted to watch horror films. And so he's watched a lot of shit I probably shouldn't have shown him like very early on. Like I've shown him, the Gremlins or Burbs or, weird shark movies you shouldn't have seen. But I said, you know what, Henry, let's start at the beginning. So I started showing him the classic monster Universal movies. So he watched Creature from the Black Lagoon. Then he watched Wolfman. Now we're in the process of Frankenstein and Dracula. So I'm going back and showing him those old movies to see where things became or where they came from. Tori, you talk a big game. But my favorite franchise, I don't know. It changes constantly.
Leprechaun, I know, is one of them.
Well, yeah, Leprechaun to me is such a sore subject, and I'm not even joking. People think I'm joking about this.
Oh,
I literally at the Spiral premiere begged the execs. I was standing there, and they go, one of the execs said something like, "Thank you, JW." One of the execs said, "What do you want to do next?" And I said, "I'm not fucking around. I want to do Leprechaun." And she goes, "You're joking. You're not going to do Leprechaun." And I was like, "I'm not fucking joking at all. I absolutely want to do Leprechaun, and I don't understand why you have not allowed me to do this." And then she kind of laughed and blew it off. And then I see, I don't know, 5 months ago, hey, they're doing the Leprechaun thing. Then I found a friend of mine texted me and said, hey, I went in to pitch today on Leprechaun. So not only are they actually doing it, they would not return my, because then I had my agent call and I said, hey, I'm not joking, I want to do Leprechaun. They don't.
You wrote like a whole intimate, like passionate message about how much you want to do it.
Scott Milam, who wrote Mother's Day, and I came up with the whole pitch on how to do the Leprechaun thing, and I think something pretty fucking awesome, but they're just not having it.
I would like to see some of your transitions implemented into a Leprechaun movie.
So
I'm serious. I'm not joking. I'm serious.
Yeah. So there'll be no Leprechaun for me. But yeah, I mean, I love Leprechaun as a watch.
And Less House on the Left, probably, no?
Well, yeah, I mean, I have favorite horror movies, but I'm trying to think if there's any franchises that I like.
This is my buddy Kobe, who I got into the Softums. We just caught up on Spiral last night. He's like, why do I love these so much? Like,
they strike a nerve, and I think they're about something. They're horror films that actually have a message to them. Mm-hmm. I think now that I find myself as I getting older, I follow not franchises but filmmakers. Like I love, so you look at anything Ari Aster does. Yes. Like they feel like they're all part of the same universe. They all feel like they're part, but they're not. They're individual, unique stories. Edgar, same kind of thing. Robert Eggers is making just crazy batshit movies that every time I watch one, I'm like, thank God something like this got made. Ari
Aster's like the horror web version of Wes Anderson. I say.
Yeah, I mean he's both him and Robert Eggers. They're just doing cool shit. And I think that, it's a movie business. It's all part of a machine. You have to make money. And these movies, not only are they so arty and singular in their vision, but they're making money. And I think that is so fucking cool. And so I look at things like that now, filmmakers, that I'm like, wow, that's fucking cool. I'm trying to think if I have a favorite horror franchise now. I actually don't. I'm not hip like I used to be. I have kids.
Well, can I tell you something? Like, having kids. Didn't you just recently have you had an interview and an article about that? Having kids.
Talkhouse. I wrote an article on Talkhouse about having kids change the way I look at horror, and it basically summarized it is just that, before, when I was in my 20s, I made movies that I just wanted to gross people out. It was a shock factor. It was like, can I do this? And now, like, I look at my son and I look at my daughter, and it's just like, that doesn't interest me anymore. Like, I look at them and I want to make the world better for them. And I'm like, is what I'm doing right now, am I doing anything that's going to make the world better, or am I just making the world worse and gross and more? That doesn't mean I'm going to stop making gross out movies. I'm not.
It's cinema.
There has to be a reason. There has to be a meaning. There has to be something more. And, before having kids as well, I didn't realize how content affects them. But you look at my son, and he's addicted to this thing called Huggy Wuggy, which is it's kind of like Five Nights at Freddy. It's a serial killing animatronic robot thing. And, what he looks at affects him. He thinks about it. He agonizes over it. And so I just want to do shit that, like Saw, for example, had a message. There is a thing in there that if you were to watch the movie, there is a message to the movie.
They saved my life. The films have saved my life during difficult times. The messages: forgiveness, appreciating your life, valuing your loved ones, letting go of things that are like holding you back and hurting others.
Well, both of my mother and father were diagnosed with cancer when I was doing Saw 2. And I think that to me, it was such a, I guess, impactful thing, is that here's a character who's dying of cancer. And both of my parents had cancer in the same year that I got Saw 2. And it really kind of framed that movie as something different for me than just a horror film. It was this, it was a story about a man who realizes that, he wants what all these people that are taking advantage of their life have. Like, he wants that opportunity that they're throwing away, they're wasting away.
Or taking away from other people.
Exactly. So I think that the article, you can find that on Talkhouse.
Yeah.
It's just about what having kids has done to me. And like I said, I'm not done making fucked up movies. I'll continue that. But there just has to be a reason at this point. There has to be a meaning behind it. It can't just be senseless.
Yeah, like this one.
Yeah, Jonathan McClatchy and I went to high school. Now, what is it? Fuck, is that 30 years ago? It's insane. I'm goddamn old.
You're not that You and I are not too far from age. I'm 35. You're like,
Yeah,
but
I'm 70. I'm 43. So
I say I'm halfway to 70, or so.
yeah. But it started this whole thing started in high school where like I did Jonathan McClatchy, who was just there, his mother, was the drama teacher at school, and it kind of shaped me because I was not good at sports. I was not good at math or history or whatever, and I found this weird theater department that allowed me to be weird and embraced. I'm from the Midwest, and I remember in the theater department we had geeks, freaks, trannies, gays, whites, blacks, Asian, everyone, and it was the first time in kind of my Kansas upbringing that I felt like I belonged to something.
Mhm.
And I think for the first 14 years of my life, I aimlessly tried to fit in with sports people, which I did not, or people that I didn't. And then I find the theater department, and for the first time, I was like, "Fuck, this is it. This is what I want to do." And so yeah, that's where kind of like everything changed in a 25-year reunion. It's crazy. That's where everything changed for me. Was kind of in that theater world where I found what I wanted to do.
Listen, I know you have to go. Just give me 2 more minutes,
Sure.
because to Darren, would you? Oh well, I didn't mean to bring up more questions. Would you ever collaborate with Dista? I meant to start
Not
with Dista.
not on Strangeland, because I think
Not on
he's
Strangeland.
direct the sequel to Strangeland. But I did tweet something recently that it was a true story. I forgot what the tweet said. It's going to be a lot funnier than what I'm saying now, but it was like, if I ever find myself depressed and sad, I think back to the time in third grade where I did Dee Snider, our Twisted Sisters. Oh my God! Burn in Hell as a talent show contest. I was supposed to do a talent show, and it was supposed to be a lip syncing thing where you had to come out and act it out. And I, at the very last second, changed what I was supposed to do. I was supposed to be in a group, and I think they were going to do something stupid like tequila, like dun, 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 tequila. I was like, this is fucking lame. And I changed it to Burn in Hell from Twisted Sister, Stay Hungry album. And I remember the face of all the teachers as I'm looking out with doing my fake guitar, doing the Burn in Hell. It made me very happy.
So, listen, my friend JW, also host Archers, thanks for joining us on the Indiescape. Darren, great job, Gabe. The Huggy Wuggy edition cuts deep. So many kids, including my nephews. There's a horror film to be made there. Richard says, "Good health to your family, Darren. If you don't, call me when us."
Richard, I am there at the end of the month. We will go. We will hang out. We will catch up. I am there mixing.
And I wanted to tell you, listen, I grew up on horror since I was 5. Regarding your son, because I grew up on horror since I was 5 years old. However, I was started on the classics. Abbott Stella Meet Frankenstein got me into horror. Bride of Frankenstein, House on Haunted Hill. By the time I was 8 or 9, I was watching Chucky, the Chucky Child's Play films, Aliens. Yes, I had some nightmares, but I slowly grew into the modern, and I was always more disturbed by real life. Like, I can't look at stitches. I get grossed out by stitches. I get grossed out by certain scars, but I can watch some of the goriest films ever made. Some of them, not some of them, will still gross me out. But like, it's some people think everybody's different. Some people are desensitized to it. Some people like it. It doesn't change how they are affected. Like there are kids who are people who will watch an animal like in my religion you have the shechting for the kosher food, who can watch that but can't watch horror movies. I have friends who worked as EMTs or worked on after a terrorist attack, after a bombing, and I cannot stomach that, but because it's real. It's like the real life horror, the war movies. The real life horror is what's truly scary.
I think that to me, for my son and the way that I want to raise him is, I was never sheltered. My parents were not this conservative family. They were very, outgoing and liberal, and took me to what I wanted to see, and then nurtured the interest that I had. And I think that for my kid, I want to show him the difference between make believe and reality, because right now there is horror all around us. You turn on the news and it's just plagued with horror. And I think that, to me, horror films are an escape. They're the best kind of escape, because it allows me to work out my own bullshit in my head by watching other people, whether they fight a zombie apocalypse or go kill a bunch of campers in the woods. There is a cathartic release which allows me to feel more adjusted in my everyday life. There was a study just done, University, I think it was University of Chicago, that did this study on COVID, and they came out with the conclusion that fans of horror were able to deal with the pandemic much easier and better than fans that did not embrace horror, because I think horror gives you that outlet to explore the deepest, darkest recesses of what's going on in your mind. It's therapy. And I think that if you can, for me as a father, teach my son, like taking him to set, letting him see Morgan getting put in makeup and the fire bars going in front of the camera and wires, he's going to understand this is fantasy. This is not real.
Yeah.
And be able to separate true horror, what's going on, because there is true horror all around
Very
us.
smart. I love that.
To the escapism that I think we get to play in right now.
Yeah. One last thing, my friend Brandon says, Darren, direct a biopic with New Kids on the Block similar to the great one done about New Edition. Donnie trusts you now, so.
I thought Donnie hated me for the longest time because I didn't hear from him. And then on Twitter, I said something about Donnie. I was like, well, the guy doesn't talk to me anymore. And he immediately responded.
I saw that.
Yeah, you fucking crazy. I love you. No, Donnie is fantastic. And I would love to go. I want to go to a New Kids concert. I've not been as an adult. I think I went to a New Kids concert when I was 10 or 11 or something ridiculous. I had Big Bopper magazine was a thing when I was growing up. They had all the like Alyssa Milano pictures and New Kids on the Block pictures. Dude, I had so many New Kids on the Block, like Big Bopper magazines. That was my jam back in the day. And again, as a grown up, I get to work with one of the lead singers of it. It's pretty crazy.
Yeah. Listen, last thing, I want you to tell everybody where to follow you on social media pages, for everybody watching, for any updates that you have.
Follow me. I mean, you can find all that information out on my website. I think it's DarrenBousman.com. I haven't been there in a long time, but I think that's it. Instagram is always the best. I post the most on Instagram, which is Darren Bousman, or on Twitter, Darren_Bousman. But yeah, listen, Gabe, thank you very much for having me on.
Of course.
It's always a joy to see you and talk to you.
Always. I'll be in touch.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Please.
We'll be in touch. Yeah. I'm going to be in LA in October. Maybe
let's get together. I'd love to.
For sure, man. Go take care of your family. Have a great night. It was a pleasure having you on.
Talk soon. Bye, everyone. Thank you.